I'm Michael Sangster, CEO of NAC. Join me and Gale Force Winds for special conversations here at the North American Education Convention.
Well, I'm Alan Dale from Gale Force Winds. I got to tell you, I'm having a great time here, day 2 at the North American Career Education Convention. Good people in the room, having great conversations. They know what it means to make a difference in people's lives. They transform lives every single day that they go to work. Powerful stuff, powerful conversations, and all of their voices matter. I love meeting them one by one. And on that note, ma'am, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do.
Hi there. My name is Heather. I am what's been described as a future work strategist. It's really a made-up title because I needed a title. And I look at how the world's changing and I sort of explain it to people because it's sort of like telling a fish how's the water. A lot of people don't understand some of the changes that have already taken place around them, and then they're therefore not prepared for the ones that are coming next.
Talk to me about some of those changes and what is coming next.
So a lot of people focus on the technology. So they're like looking at what AI can do or what have you. But I look at what AI is doing to us and what humans have gone through over the last several decades. So we're increasingly isolated. We have a loneliness epidemic, which changes the shape of our brain. It changes our response to stimuli. At a time, we've got a greater amount of stimuli coming at us. Things like AI will lead to memory loss in some ways, de-skilling, less patience with friction, because the more we can get an answer or we can retrieve an answer, the less time we spend struggling to get an answer, which is a really important part of learning. So this is the kind of things I talk about.
So it's here, it's around us. How do we embrace it? How do we work with it? How do we live with it?
So first and foremost, play with it. Definitely experiment with it. But also pay attention to what you're not doing anymore and you don't have the capacity. So simple examples I give people is, if I took your phone and I wiped out your contact list, how many people could you call?
Yeah, that's true.
None, right?
Yeah.
How many places can you get to without GPS? We've outsourced things to technology relatively quickly if you look at, over human history, and we're not aware of that. And sometimes that's okay, because like right now, 2% of our people or less grow all of our food when it used to be 90% of our people. That's made our lives better. But in ways that start to affect our cognition and how we perceive the world, we want to be mindful of that.
Okay. How do we stay mindful of that? Because we often take that for granted, because you're so right. I mean, I wouldn't have thought about who I could call, right? But how do we stay in touch with that?
Well, we don't necessarily have to. There's some things we're going to let go of. We don't need to remember 7-digit phone numbers or 10-digit phone numbers. We just don't need to. But what are some of the things that we want to still be able to do? Where do we want to not lose friction? I mean, a really good example right now is the early examples they have of us using large language models like ChatGPT in work. We'll take a C player and make them a B player, a B plus player. And then when you take the tool away, that C player becomes a C minus player because they lose their ability that they had, even if it was lesser than. We just want to be mindful of that. And especially in an environment like this when we're talking about learning, if we just use ChatGPT and plug in every answer we get from it, we're not struggling with I don't know, we're not making great breakthroughs, we're not learning to be more resilient and persistent, we're not coming up with new ideas, we're not doing some really important struggles that we need to do as humans.
Okay, you talk about play with it. What does play with it look like? What would you sort of give people as an example of that?
One really great one is you got to write an email to someone, right? And it's someone you probably don't like, right? And you got to deal with them at work. And you're like, here's the information I was going to give them. And it has like a kind of crappy tone. And you're like, I know that doesn't really what I want to say. Put it in ChatGPT or Cloud or one other one. Say, rewrite this email, make it more friendly, make it clear and concise. And you will see a change in the language that will actually help you with your relationships. So using it like that, or asking it to generate an image, or asking it to write a poem, or asking it to come up with a nickname for something. Just start playing and seeing what it can do and where you might use it in your life, but really be mindful of the things you're not doing anymore.
We have this conversation in our business all the time about how this new tech is going to replace the things that we do. And I have to tell you, I think it's going to be very hard for that to replace this. This interaction between two people and reading each other's eyes and sensing the excitement and the sadness and all of that. Would I be right in that?
Yeah, there's something we get when we make eye contact, and I challenge people to do this right now. Go through the next 24 to 48 hours of your life, and every single human you interact with, provided you feel comfortable doing this, make eye contact with it, even if it's for a split second. Checking into a hotel, in an elevator, checking out at a grocery store. Don't just look in their direction, which is what we've started to do, but look in their eyes and say hello and say thank you. You will feel different because you get a little boost of a chemical, oxytocin, when you do that. And it's a feeling of connection that you don't get through a screen, and you don't get it when I look in your direction, but I don't look in your eyes.
Yeah, you do get it, don't you?
Yeah.
I get it every time I'm in a conversation with somebody.
Here's another thing to connect it back to technology. When they looked at the top 10 ways people were using tools like ChatGPT, in 2024, they were like, generate an image, write me a poem. That was number one. Now it's help me with therapy of some sort. So the top 3 reasons in 2025 are all human need based. The top ones in 2024 were not.
Right. So here we are, we're at the career convention. We're talking about people here that are educating people to go to work right away. How does all of this impact them, and what should they be focusing on?
One of the things I said in my talk is one of the things that nobody talks about explicitly, and at 54 years old, I finally realized it's the one business we're all in. We're all in the business of managing expectations. Think about it. If you get a diagnosis from a doctor, somebody fixes your car, you're getting a project done in your house, you're talking to your financial manager, you're talking to your boss, you're talking to your mother, every single one of those instances, you're managing expectations in some form or fashion, but we never talk about explicitly doing it, and we don't make people better at doing it. It's one really important human thing. When will that project be done? What will it cost to fix my car? What could happen? When will the plane take off? What does this medical diagnosis mean to me? When will my pool be finished? Answering those questions is not something that we really focus on. It's satisfying to humans to get a sense of what their expectations should be and what they can expect. There's a trust element to it too.
Right. I love that. That's a really interesting take on it all. Has the conference and the conversations you've had been rewarding to you, and are you liking the direction this entire sector is going?
Sure. I mean, this is a great sector because it helps people get into the workforce right away. It is not highly theoretical where it might apply sometime in the future. You get these kinds of educations because there's a job on the other side of it or a career on the other side of it. So they're very tuned in to what's happening. So I always find it rewarding when I get to talk to these kinds of audiences.
How about a little bit about you? What was your journey to this point? How did all this come to play for you?
I applied for a job as a future work strategist. Just kidding. It's a made-up title. So I started as an industrial designer, which is product design strategy. And it's really a training into how do you focus on what the human is trying to do? How do you question the question? How do you frame the problem better so that you're not just providing the right answer? So it's an education in inquiry and probing that lasts your whole life. So that's where I started. And then I went in product design, I went into investment banking for a little while, I went to higher ed, I went to academia. In 2014, I wrote an article on LinkedIn, and 100,000 people read it in 24 hours. And I started getting speaking requests from all over the world. And 10 years later, that's what I do.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was a sort of pivotal moment. Did you know that was did you expect any of that to come your way?
No, I thought I was doing it all to write a book.
Right.
And then writing a book was like, I remember one of the folks who hired me said, and it was in Australia, it was a partner of a management consulting firm, and he's like, you can write a book, Heather, but I'm only interested in if you read it to me, because the way you explain things to me is how I really learn. He's like, you're a speaker first and an author second. And I was like, oh, okay.
What was that first speaking engagement like? Do you remember it? What was that like for you?
I was hired by a group in Australia, and they had sought 39 well-known international speakers with like New York Times best-selling authors and one unknown individual. And I poured my heart and soul into getting ready for that talk. And afterwards, I was ranked like number 2 or number 3 of the whole conference. I was the unknown. No one had never heard of me before, and then I had videos of that helped me launch my career.
Do you get nervous now when you do that, or
not
is
at
this
all.
part of natural?
No, in fact, I wear a ring that will tell me my stress levels.
Yeah.
And I was at an event recently where my stress level was absolutely calm during the speaking engagement, and then absolutely elevated later when I had to go to a cocktail party, because that's like more stressful for me than standing on stage in front of 10,000 people.
An absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you. Thank you very much for your perspective. It certainly gives us a lot to think about, and I love the way you describe it. You play with it, but let's be very cognizant of what we're giving up in that process.
Yeah.
A beautiful explanation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Take care.
Thank you for watching Gale Force Wins from Las Vegas. Check out knack.ca and career.org to learn more about knack and CQ.